The Council's Suspicions. Year of the Dark Portal. Medivh made occasional trips to Draenor to observe the Orcs' progress in building the Dark Portal. His absence were noticed. At first, they resulted in complaints from the nobles and the entertainers who would come to Coruscant for various festivities. When the host was not there, the night was seen as a disappointment. Word of his disappearance eventually reached the Council of Tirisfal. Medivh was still a mystery to them. Years ago, they'd been concerned that he would be an enemy of the Council, as Egwin was. When he'd seemed to withdraw from the world, they emerged for parties and revelry. An immature young man who wanted to live a life of luxury and excess was not exactly who the Council had hoped the Guardian would be, but it was far from the worst possible outcome. The Order had called on the Kirin Tor's accomplice Magi to keep watch over the world in the absence of an official Guardian. But if he had no true interest in the materialistic lifestyle he had cultivated, what were his real intentions? Where was the Guardian spending his time and energy? The Council was no longer content to wait and see what Medivh intended to do with his astonishing power. At the Council's behest, Kirin Tor Magi covertly infiltrated Coruscant to find answers. Some disguised themselves as guests at Medivh's parties. Others sought ways to open portals directly into his libraries. Neither approach had any success. Medivh made sure that every one of their attempts failed, and that the Magi responsible returned home safe but disappointed. Though these intruders were from the Kirin Tor, Medivh knew that the Council of Tirisfal was guiding their actions. He needed to stop the Council's meddling, for he believed it would never approve of his plan to save Azeroth. In the span of a week, 4 members of the Council of Tirisfal were found dead. There was no evidence of Medivh's involvement, no sign that arcane power had been used at all. In fact, during that week, the Guardian had made appearances at Coruscant's parties every night. It did not seem possible for him to have committed the murders. The Council's remaining members had suspicions, but they couldn't rule out the possibility that someone else was targeting them. In truth, they found it hard to imagine that Medivh could have fallen so far as to murder fellow Magi. They ceased their spying on Coruscant and focused their efforts on discovering who was slaughtering them like lambs. Medivh was free to act once again. The Dark Portal. As the portal took shape on Draenor, Gul'dan urged Blackhand to strengthen the clans. The warchiefs staged mock battles and duels between the Orcs to give them an outlet of their bloodlust. The Horde had grown feeble, and it needed every fighter at its disposal for the coming invasion of Azeroth. Though many Orcs reveled in combat, Durotan saw it as a disgrace to tradition. The Frostwolf chieftain could no longer stay silent about what was happening to his people. His world was dying. He had seen the Orcs become bloodthirsty savages. Durotan began speaking out against Gul'dan and the use of fel magic. He urged the Orcs to seek ways to heal their world. Most clans saw this as an act of treason and cowardice, and they lashed out at the Frostwolves. Gul'dan kept a careful watch on Durotan, but his efforts were focused on other things. He and Blackhand convinced the clans that conquering Azeroth was the only way their people would survive. Most Orcs, especially those who had drunk Manoroth's blood, were delighted at the opportunity to slaughter once again. Draenor was dying. No one could deny that. If the Horde did not take this chance to build a new home, everyone would perish. Once the Dark Portal was built, Gul'dan worked with Medivh to open it. The Warlock would conduct a ritual with his counterpart on Azeroth to tear a rift in the fabric of reality. The amount of raw power needed to do so was astonishing. It would require Gul'dan and Medivh to pool their magic together, but even that would not be enough on its own. Nearly every Draenei prisoner who still lived was brought to the base of the Dark Portal. At the moment the ritual began, Gul'dan drained all their life essences in an instant. That massive spike of power created the spark needed to cross such a large distance. Meanwhile, Medivh conducted his own spell work on Azeroth. In an isolated swamp east of Karasan known as the Black Morass, he called upon the full might of his guardian energies to rip open a gateway. Due to his and Gul'dan's combined efforts, the dark portal shimmered and activated, forming a bridge between the two worlds. Through the portal, Gul'dan and the orcs glimpsed Azeroth for the first time. The world that the hooded stranger had promised him was real. Blackhand sent his most trusted scouts, members of the Bleeding Hollow and the Black-Tooth Grin clans, to survey the other side of the portal. They emerged in the Black Morass and quickly established a camp. A number of warlocks accompanied these scouts. They oversaw the effort to build an enchanted stone frame around the portal on the Azeroth side, which would stabilize the gateway and allow it to stay open for extended periods. As construction progressed, the orcs scouted more and more territory. Clash of the Guardians. The sheer scale of magical powers required to open the dark portal made the event impossible to hide. Medivh had concealed his activities as much as possible, but almost every creature attuned to magic on Azeroth felt ripples when the gateway roared to life. Most could not detect where this disturbance had come from. One person could. Egwene immediately set out to investigate the source. She was shocked to discover the dark portal and the green-skinned beings who had established a war camp in the Black Morass. They were clearly hostile, and they were laced with traces of the Burning Legion's felpower. Egwene had never seen orcs, nor had she heard of Draenor, but she was able to sense the bridge between the two worlds. And then, in a moment that shook her to her core, she recognized that the Guardian's magic had been used to make this possible. There was no mistaking it. The only person on Azeroth who was capable of using this power in this way was her son, Medivh. She also sensed the presence of fel magic intertwined with this. Egwene could not fathom what had happened, but she could only conclude that Medivh had somehow allied himself with the Legion. With a heavy heart, she set out to stop him. Accompanied by a blue dragon named Chronicles, one of the few allies she had made during her long years of exile, she traveled to Karasan to confront Medivh. The tower was crowded, filled with nobles who were expecting another exciting gala. Egwene entered the tower alone at first, hoping she could convince Medivh to give up his power peacefully. It was not to be. The creature she fought that day was not Medivh, but Sargeras. The Lord of the Burning Legion seized full control of the Guardian's mind, suppressing his thoughts and memories, controlling his every action. Sargeras revealed to Egwene that the darkness within her son was the same darkness she had felt as Guardian. It had nothing to do with her power or her burden. Sargeras had transferred a portion of his spirit into her when they fought long ago in Northrend, and he had remained hidden within the mage until she gave birth to her son. Egwene was stunned as the truth set in. She had not bested Sargeras all those years ago. He had bested her. The darkness that had plagued her was not from the burden of guardianship, but from her greatest nemesis lurking in her soul. Had she doomed her son to a life as a Legion slave? Had her entire tenure as guardian been meaningless? These revelations might have broken a lesser human, but not Egwene. She did not lose herself to despair. No, she became angry. She would defeat Sargeras here and now, even if it meant striking down her beloved boy. And with that, Egwene and Sargeras went to battle once again. The opening blows of the fight shook the tower to its foundations. The would-be revelers tried to flee. Chronicles leaped into the fray just as one of Sargeras' spells temporarily incapacitated Egwene. Despite being a dragon, Chronicles was severely outmatched. Sargeras struck him down, burning the creature from the inside out, until all that remained was bone. The loss of her friend sent Egwene even further into the depths of rage, and she drew on her anger to break free of Sargeras' spell. The Legion's ruler might have had a full weight of her guardian's power under his control, but she had centuries of experience. As the great duel continued raging through the tower, Egwene slowly gained the upper hand. Sargeras grew desperate. He reached out to power one final assault. In the same way that Gul'dan had drained the life from the Draenei prisoners to activate the Dark Portal, Sargeras ripped the life out of the hundreds of humans who were fleeing Karazhan. Only one person, Murrows, was spared. Sargeras pushed Medivh to destroy Egwene once and for all. A small part of the Guardian's mind resisted the command. His power, brimming with the life force of hundreds of people, instead banished Egwene from Karazhan and hurled her elsewhere. Medivh didn't know where he had sent her, but he could not sense her presence anywhere on Azeroth. With the battle over, confusion rippled through Medivh's mind. At the moment of Egwene's defeat, Sargeras had returned into the depths of the Guardian's soul. Medivh had no memory that the Demon Lord had controlled him, but he knew that he had clashed with his mother. He feared that he had lost control of his powers again, as he had all those years ago before he slipped into a coma. This time, instead of only killing his father, he had slaughtered some of the most important nobles in the kingdom of Stormwind. The only survivor within Karazhan, Murrows, seemed to be driven half-mad by what he had witnessed. Medivh tried to ease his suffering by purging the memories of that day from Murrows' mind. Even so, the poor man was never the same. Neither was Karazhan. It had grown darker, haunted. The spirits of many of the slain humans would wander its halls and grounds for years to come.